Trump being friend of India and then taking a U-turn and going back. What do you think is happening over here?
He is primarily concerned with one thing, that everybody in the world, including India, should follow my dictates. Trump has been running what is called as a very transactional foreign policy. Foreign policy should support my personal goals. The more India and China will grow closer to each other, you will see a concerted attempt by America to put down the Indo-China relationship. And this has happened many times.
Very famous quote by Henry Kissinger. There will be two poles of geopolitics. One would be America, other would be China, and India would be the fulcrum of this geopolitical. Do you think India is the fulcrum or India is the pole?
India has always been one of the poles. Saying that India will be a fulcrum is like comparing India with a state like Pakistan.
The security guarantees which America has given to a lot of countries, do you think those are reliable?
America offering you anything is not credible. Trump doesn't realize this. He needs India more than India needs US today. Based on our strategic autonomy, if India just plays its one single card of allowing more Russian presence in the Indo-Pacific, the Americans are screwed forever. He doesn't come from a foreign policy background. He doesn't come from a political background. He has never been a senator, or he has never been a governor, or he's been a bloody property dealer of Gurgaon.
What if, hypothetically, in 2027, China attempts to capture Taiwan? Do you think America will come saving Taiwan?
See, firstly,
there's one Israel and Hamas, Iran, Gaza, that situation is going on. Russia and Ukraine is going on. What will be the next major conflict? And by the end of all of this, where do you think India, Russia and China will be in comparison, in terms of their own relationship?
India-Russia relationship is a time-tested, trusted relationship. India-China relationship has a lot of misunderstanding today and a lot of deep distrust also today. But that also depends upon how China wishes to see India in the future.
Do you think this is America's last dance?
In fact, as I said, they
Namaste Jai Hind, my name is Jayesh Gangan and this is The J Report, a podcast where we talk about everything that is happening in the world and also in India. In tonight's episode, my guest is Pavneet Singh ji. Pavneet Singh ji is a UPSC mentor and a geopolitical analyst and much more. In this episode, we decode what is happening between India and America. We discuss why suddenly Donald Trump and Narendra Modi had that break in between, what happened to their friendship and what happened to the international relations between these two countries. This podcast is very special because this is Pavneet Singh ji's first English podcast. I hope so you'll like this podcast. If you do, please leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please let us know what are the other topics that you want us to cover with Mr. Pavneet Singh ji. Let's start this podcast in 3, 2, 1. Namaste Pavneet ji. I think this is one of your first English podcasts.
yes.
Okay. This is called The J Report. This is our new channel. We have done 2 episodes on the Hindi podcast, but
Right.
this is our first one for here.
Right.
A lot is happening in the world. We already talked about this on the Hindi channel, but this is for specifically for those people who are interested in geopolitics, who are interested in bureaucracy, and who want to get to know what is the insider scoop of all of this, which is happening in the world. Currently, we are seeing there are a lot of things happening, but centrally to India, one of the biggest threats or the challenges that I have seen in current times is the US tariffs. It started off with Trump being friend of India and then taking a U-turn and going back to giving us tariffs, taking Pakistan in its own lap. What do you think is happening over here?
The basic problem is that Trump is a very frustrated person because he is primarily concerned with one thing, that everybody in the world, including India, should follow my dictates. Now, objective of America has always been to basically view India and see India as a junior partner. They have never been very comfortable with the idea that India can rise and emerge as a global power. So, as India tries to rise and as India aspires to become a global power, you are likely to see a more frustrated America and highly frustrated Trump in this regard. So, Trump's frustration, firstly, per se, in this regard, is to be seen in this context. Now, there are other few things that Trump has been running what is called as a very transactional foreign policy, where primarily the objective is that my idea is that foreign policy should support my personal goals. And my personal goals are that, to some extent in some sectors of America, I want to have some dominance. So, thereby wrapping them under the Make America Great campaign, I want people to focus on that. Obviously, India is not very comfortable. So let me give you an example. Today, the America's agrarian lobby and the agricultural farmers who are there, they have been a very big supporter category of Trump. They have been pressurizing the American government to allow access of Indian markets, specifically in the dairy sector and agrarian products. India is not comfortable in that. Why are they so particular about that? Is because their agriculture sector is already highly developed. It's very mechanized. They have given subsidies to make it grow. So now they have a problem if India gives any subsidy. Now they have a problem that why India is not allowing their products. So problem here is that India, till the time it safeguards its own national interest, you will see Trump trying to create troubles here for us. So that is going to remain as a perpetual feature. It's not something that is a phenomena today, but we expect this to happen for the next 2-3 years also.
Okay. Do you think that the military industrial complex, it will start creating problems for India, and the skirmishes that we see with either China or Pakistan, these will increase?
See, the military industrial complex has always been at the forefront of manufacturing conflicts, as I say. And they do two things. The first thing they do is manufacturing conflict. Then the second thing, what Noam Chomsky had said once, they manufacture consent for the conflict. So they do the both the things which are there together. Now, what happens with regard to India is that the more India and China will grow closer to each other, Russia and India already have a deep relationship with each other. You will see a concerted attempt by America to put down the Indo-China relationship. And this has happened many times. I'll give you one example that in 2019, if I'm not wrong, I just confirm the date once, that I believe in 2019 when we invited Xi Jinping for a informal summit in Mahabalipuram. India had experimented with this new concept of informal summits where we sit down without any preconceived debates, without any preconceived ideas that what we are going to talk. Let's talk whatever we want to talk. This is something that, for that matter, America did not like. That why are these people doing informal summits? Why are they coming closer? So they began to manufacture stuff. And during the COVID period, these people manufactured stuff to this extent that they began to create narrative that China has occupied territory of India. And today, with their own support of their own deep state in India, they continue to nurture this thought. The fact is that the Prime Minister has clarified that there has been no such illegal occupation. Yet, this rumor, yet this narrative has been spread throughout the society on behalf of such people who have their interests primarily associated with America. So, this is how they behave. So, they will definitely not want any kind of proximity developing between India, China in the future also. So, any proximity between India, China is detrimental to the interests of US. So how will they unfold it is something we need to wait and watch.
But they'll keep trying.
They will definitely keep trying. So don't expect that they will keep quiet about this and allow this bonhomie to be explored per se.
If you remember, there was this one very famous quote by Henry Kissinger wherein he said that there will be two poles of geopolitics. One would be America, other would be China, and India would be the fulcrum of this geopolitical issue. In 2025, in August, we are recording this podcast. Do you think India is the fulcrum or India is the pole, one of the pole?
India has always been one of the poles. Saying that India will be a fulcrum is like comparing India with a state like Pakistan. The fact is that we have a very clear-cut ambition that we have been a civilizational power. We aspire to become a global power. We will become a global power one day. As I said, this is something that America and China will both be very uncomfortable with that. China would not want to share the status of being the sole superpower in Asia with anybody. So obviously for them, India is a competitor in this regard. America will definitely not want that to happen because for America, they have already explored this idea of something called G2, where there are only two countries in the world, the two global powers, one is US and one is China. So what Henry Kissinger said way back in 1970s is exactly what in the early 2010 decade was stated by Obama also. So fact is that America to some extent has now started reconciling this, what they were not willing to accept for long, that fine, China has now become a credible player. It's going to take over us. So rather than allowing it to take over us, let's divide the world into two spheres where China says that, okay, I control one sphere of the world and America says I control one sphere of the world.
Right.
So for that matter, in this regard, India remains a pole because we have been a very clear-cut power here that we believe in a multipolar world where we also can assert our power. So yes, obviously India is not a fulcrum, it's definitely a pole.
Right. How do you see India and Europe's relationship going ahead? Because we have seen that US and the West, Europe, they have a coupled economy. Now, when US tariffs us, do you think Europe will follow, or they'll have a separate relationship with us?
See, Europe will always have a separate relationship and an independent relationship with India. And what is the biggest driver of India Europe relationship is today the deteriorating Europe China relationship. Because European countries, initially very enthusiastic about China, have now realized that engaging with China only gives benefits to China. They don't benefit us. On the other hand, when they engage with India, they know very clearly that benefits flow both sides. But for China, the benefit is only for them. So, in this regard, there is a recalibration happening within the European sphere. How will it manifest is what the time will tell. Because, see, European countries are very conservative countries. They don't like fast paced deals, they are slow in nature. They want to safeguard their interests and they want to safeguard your interest. So, yes, Europe India relationship will definitely improve, not really inspired by Trump tariffs per se.
Hmm. I heard this somewhere that the world is constantly moving towards a hexagonal geopolitical multipolar system wherein America, China, Russia. These are your three poles. Then there's Japan with ASEAN, India with Europe, and then the global South. I see constantly that even India has become Prime Minister Modi himself said that we are the voice of global South. So India with global South and Europe. How big is the power?
See, India with Global South and along with Japan with ASEAN will definitely rise as a global power.
Do you think that we can dominate the Western
No, no,
hegemony
see,
then?
we don't need to dominate the Global South. That's the wrong word to use because when you use the word dominate, you imply something like China or US.
Hmm.
Our objective is something that we used to do during the non aligned years also. That time we used to call these Global South countries as basically, the G77
Hmm.
countries. So our objective is very clear. We are here for your benefit. We will work for your welfare. We are not here to exploit you. So, in this regard, one thing is very clear that you will definitely see India having a deep presence with Global South.
Hmm.
So, we don't want to dominate them,
Right.
nor do we want to control them. We want to work for their welfare and we are genuine well wishers, unlike some other countries which are there.
Okay. But here's what U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he accused India of profiteering from Russian oil. Now, S. Jaishankar, he was recently in Russia and he mentioned that India is not the largest buyer of the Russian oil. It is Europe is there, China is there. How do you see relationship with U.S. moving ahead? How will they develop? Because once you use words like profiteering, there's no going back.
See, the Americans are basically hypocrites, and it's a hypocritical country full of worthless people to the core. First thing is that they themselves conceptualized a system where they allowed India to buy the Russian oil. Now, when India started buying that Russian oil, what happened is that India, instead of just using it for their domestic consumption, also started buying it to refine it and sell it in the global markets. This is where the American problem began. Ki why is India emerging as a global supplier of oil? India has always been a global buyer of oil. So you can't overnight transform yourself from a buyer to seller. As I said, America will never be comfortable in having or looking at India in a different way. They always see India as a junior partner, as a servant, and apparently our 70 years of leadership has also nurtured India that way that we remain a servant of US rather than standing up equally to them. So America will be uncomfortable. Now, when India today emerged not only as a supplier of oil, but in that process of supplying oil, it also emerged as a credible player in the global maritime domain of having their own tankers. At the insurance level in the finance sector, having their own insurance firms ensuring that oil trade. This is where America started losing its control. So saying that, India profiteered from oil is as hypocrite, as it can be. Because did India do anything illegal? India never did anything illegal which is there, right? Did we break any law? Did we violate any law? We did nothing. In fact, we outrightly followed a system that you people created. The only thing that we did is we outsmarted you people. And that's why you are so hypocritical about it. And if you have the guts, go and say this to China today. China is apparently the number one biggest buyer of oil from Russia. Do you have the audacity today and the balls today to say this to China? They will slap you to the core. You know it very well. Don't give importance to America type country which does not have the money to bloody pay its own debts today to the world. Why should we give importance to such kind of a worthless country? They may have been a superpower at one point of time. They are nothing today. It's a country of rogue people with rogue mindset. So treat them like that and deal with them that way.
Do you think America today is using or treating India like the Cold War West Germany?
See, whether they want to treat us like West Germany or whether they want to treat us like Soviet Union and want to have an adversarial relationship with us, the ball is in their court.
Hmm.
The fact of the matter is we have communicated to the Americans very clearly, we are not going to become your junior partner. If you want to expect equality out of us, give us adequate level of respect and treatment, we are here for you. If you want to do mischief, we'll do mischief with you then. So you decide what kind of a relationship you want.
But why are they so adamant on making us their junior partner? Because even Navarro, he bluntly said that India must buy weapons from US, but India should not expect technological transfer.
Again, see, the point is that Americans have always been, for a relatively long period of time, the sole superpowers of the world. Now they are very uncomfortable to see new competitors emerging. China is definitely a competitor that they have accepted. They have reconciled that yes, we cannot now undo this. But what they want to do is not have another China in making today. So Americans are very clear. We aided China's growth. We allowed it to become a superpower. We can't allow the same to happen to India. So we don't want more competition in the world. We are comfortable with having only China as one competitor to us. So that's at the root cause of their irritation today.
And what about the strategic autonomy of India? Because if a country like America can use tariffs like literally something to attack, like a watchdog or like an attack dog for that matter, where does the strategic autonomy go? Because there's 50% tariff on $87 billion worth of Indian exports. So what happens to that?
See, for the time being, obviously it will affect our economy badly. We'll find out ways to mitigate that. But the more important point is that what Trump doesn't realize is he needs India more than India needs US today. Because tomorrow, based on our strategic autonomy, if India just plays its one single card of allowing more Russian presence in the Indo-Pacific, the Americans are screwed forever.
Correct.
Because today, the fear of America is that there is China dominant in the Indian Ocean. They want to counter that, for which they created all this nuisance called Indo-Pacific Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, AUKUS and all that. If Russia happens to join in this era, American resources are drained here forever. So if today, for example, America wants to use a country like Pakistan to drain India, we can use Russia to drain America. But the question is, we don't want that to happen because we have built the relationship with America in the last 2.5 decades. And for a lunatic like Trump, who has come here for a very temporary period of time and will never be seen in the world again after 3 years, it's not worth compromising this depth that we have built as such.
And why do you think there's like, for example, there was this statement by Nikki Haley wherein she warns of strategic disaster from Trump's tariffs on India?
Because see, again, as I said, she being a part of an institution knows very clearly that there is an institutional relationship between India and US. And by institutional relationship, I mean that there has been layers of trust we have created. But unfortunate reality is that these layers of trust is not something what Trump type of person understands. Because see, he doesn't come from a foreign policy background. He doesn't come from a political background. He has never been a senator or he has never been a governor or as such. He's been a bloody property dealer of Gurgaon, kind of a place in India, if comparison is to be made. You expect a property dealer of Gurgaon today to, go to a golf course and, talk eloquently. Do you think that that will ever happen? He will talk like a, dalal he is. So you expect the same out of Trump today. So that's the problem with him because of his limited understanding. And see, there are two things here. One is that you may have limited understanding, but you may want to develop it. A Trump type person doesn't want to develop it also because he lives in his own delusional world where the delusion is that I know everything and whatever I say is correct. Such delusional people have a very serious downfall. They end up in damaging relationships with everybody. So don't expect Trump to have any normalcy here in the near future.
Right. But what happens to our economy because we are trying to cut down our dependence on China and at the same time US is tariffing us. So what happens to our economy? And we did talk about this in the Hindi episode as well, wherein finance ministry themselves have brought out this report wherein they have mentioned that India needs to grow at 8% every year if it wants to achieve its 2047 developed nation goal. But because of the tariffs and because of our dependence on China, which is increasing every year, where does our economy go?
See, our economy has to understand very clearly that becoming self reliant is the only way out. If you keep yourself dependent, whether on China or on America, you are not going to have any success. As far as the exports to America are concerned, as I said, yes, they will affect our economy. But let's look at the brighter side. We can always enhance our exports instead of America to global south and Europe today. These are big markets to explore. So this is the reason when a prime minister of our country happens to go to a small country like Ghana, or when he happens to go to Trinidad and Tobago to open up some spaces of exports, we know what we are doing. Though some people in India won't understand that because they don't again have the brain to understand foreign policy. But we know very clearly why these visits happen. So fine, we will diversify. We don't want to be dependent upon anybody. But at the end of the day, becoming Atmanirbhar is the only way out.
Right. Do you think America is at its limits of power and it has realized that?
In fact, I will not say America is at its limits of power. The better way to understand that is America is on a declining note. Because America's limits were achieved by 2005-6. Post 2007-8 subprime crisis, their decline has begun. Now, whenever a country declines, firstly, they will never accept it. When I'll give you an analogy, you'll understand that better. When, in our civil services industry, where I teach, there is something called as an optional subject in UPSC exam, where you have to have a specialized knowledge in that subject. So sometimes it may happen that, your optional is in a wave. Wave means that, anybody who takes that optional qualifies the exam because UPSC just wants that to happen. So some teachers end up in rising to a very high stature. But eventually they come down to this extent that they don't have more than 20 students in their class. So you had that phase of high, but then you eventually came down. So when you come down, you become a neurotic person. You don't remain normal after that. Right? Why you don't remain normal is because you have seen a peak.
Right.
And now you are driving in Mercedes and now suddenly you are coming in Delhi Metro. So, you can't reconcile the fact that, I had my Mercedes and now I am traveling by metro. This is the problem with America today. They have seen that peak. But now coming down, they are not willing to accept it. That's the problem with them.
And do you think the reason why America is quoting Pakistan again, is this their way of entering into this whole spectrum of South Asian politics?
See, the American policy is very clear that if India goes closer to China or it goes closer to Russia, we will nurture Pakistan. So American policy is that we will remain equidistant to Pakistan till the time you remain equidistant with China today. So you don't quote China, we don't quote Pakistan. So the more India-China proximity will grow, the more US-Pakistan proximity will grow. So you will see this.
Okay. And what about like the security guarantees which America has given to a lot of countries? Do you think those are reliable? Because more and more, I think EU is realizing it that it's not credible anymore.
America offering you anything is not credible. You have to first understand that it is a nation of thugs. Don't expect a criminal to give you guarantee of security. He's a criminal. He will kill you one day. So Europe, after a prolonged period of sleep, has come to now, wake up finally to understand that, we can't trust these American guarantees per se. And gradually the world will also understand. So eventually, what is the credibility left of America in the world after that?
Right.
And on top of that, today Trump says that, we want to remain as a global superpower. See, you can remain a global superpower in your dreams. It's always good. And dreams, nobody can control. So keep enjoying it. Let him have that dream.
Correct. Do you think this is America's last dance?
In fact, as I said, they have stopped dancing now. One is that you do the last performance. The fact is that here they have not been invited to do further performances. They are old enough. They have been told, you please sit down and sleep at home now. So America has to realize that. See, the frustration and the problem is very clear. They have been the superpowers. There are emerging superpowers. Either you accept that, okay, in the future we will become a middle power, coming one step down, which nobody has done in the world, by the way. So America would be the first one to do it. But somebody has to do it. If it doesn't do, then the question is that, there's only clash, there's only conflict. And it will lead to nowhere. Because the emerging powers will rise. You can't stop that. But you as a power, erstwhile superpower, you won't be able to sustain any kind of conflict further.
Correct. So what is the future of America? Where do you see it in like next 10, 20 years?
See, depending upon how America behaves in the world, a lot will depend upon that. But one thing is very clear that we don't need to do anything about America. America will collapse on their own, and they will collapse on their own only for a simple reason that Russia, China will just ignite that collapse by exploiting all the fault lines in America. The biggest fault line in America is unity of the American people today. They are as united as we are in India today, right? Because today, if you talk about anything in America, there's a deep political chaos. Today, America socially is into a deep chaos. American society is becoming unhealthy per se every single day. We know the health status there. Gradually, once they become unhealthy, that's where the game begins. Unhealthy workforce can never contribute to economic growth. See, there are differences in India and America. Na? Indian population per se is hungry. We have a lot of hunger in our country. So we need to feed food to our people. America has extra food to eat. So they are becoming accustomed to all lifestyle diseases today. And a person accustomed with a lifestyle disease is affected by that will not be able to do his job properly. So what will happen is that such kind of small fault lines, see, every country has different fault lines. If you exploit this American fault line by giving them, feeding their people with more junk food, eventually what will happen is more lifestyle diseases will happen, more money of America will be drained in insurance, less money will be available for credible economic growth. So Russia, China will do that. They are pioneers in ensuring that they don't want to militarily defeat America. They will defeat America where it hurts the Americans the most without they realizing it.
Right.
So whenever you meet any American, give them more junk food. Let them die. We want them to die. So we should feed them more such things. And they will love it anyway. So it's good. We must support that.
And by the end of all of this, where do you think India, Russia, and China will be in comparison in terms of their own relationship?
See, in terms of their own relationship, India-Russia relationship is a time-tested, trusted relationship. India-China relationship has a lot of misunderstanding today and a lot of deep distrust also today. That will take a lot of period to build over a period of time. But that also depends upon how China wishes to see India in the future. China must understand one thing, that in the next 2 decades, they are going to have a rough relationship with the Americans. Americans are not going to allow them peacefully to rise further. So in this context, do they want to rough up feathers again in India and have a volatile frontier, or they want to have a stable periphery? So ball is in their court now.
Right. And what about the dollar primacy? Because for many years we saw that dollar it had its own hegemony. Now, even when India and India and Russia are trading, there's the rupee ruble trade, and the BRICS nation, they have already talked about their own currency. So what do you think?
See, again, I'll tell you the similar thing. A country which is on the decline is a country that is very frustrated, and a country which is very worried. The moment in BRICS we talk about a BRICS currency, what happens is Trump starts saying, I will impose tariff. Why? Because you know you are on the path of decline. You know that the dollar's hegemony is declining. You know people are going to look for substitutes of dollar. So you are insecure. And had you maintained relationships with everybody in the world, had you allowed people to grow at their own pace, had you allowed the world to become a multipolar world, this problem wouldn't have arisen. Nobody would have had a problem in dealing with the American dollar. The problem is you want the world to be unilaterally controlled. And that is what people will not accept, specifically when they become larger. So this is at the root cause of their frustration today.
But America still holds a lot of power in terms of at least technology, because, for example, Meta is there, Google is there. Every major company in the world is from America. So how do you see that happening? I mean, and these companies technically control the world, because we were talking on the Hindi podcast and you mentioned about the habit that Instagrammers have these days. They are watching a lot of content, senseless content. And Instagram controls all of us in a matter. Twitter controls us.
See, the problem is technology is always very beautiful. You can always use the technology to reach out and educate people. But you can also use the technology to dumb down the humanity. Unfortunately, in India, our content creation is on the dumber part. You know, in the household, a husband and a wife are recording content and doing nonsense stuff, putting up on the Instagram, and people are viewing it and liking it. The fact is, you are not realizing that this same thing can happen in your household. And if it happens in your household, whatever that, joke or something that you want to make out of it, it will affect you one day. You know, I always wonder the fact that India is a dharmic country, it's a spiritual country. Unfortunately, there has been hardly any traction for people who provide this kind of a spiritual content. We are not spiritual seekers. We don't follow that. There is one fellow on YouTube. I'll not name him, then people say you want to promote him. I have never met him per se for that matter. He talks in only English. He visits every temple in India and he tells the stories about that temple. He tells the stories about all practices and beliefs that we follow. That, for example, why Tuesday is specific for Hanuman. If you ask somebody like this a normal question, 95% people will not know. But what's the saddest part of the reality is that that fellow has only 4 lakh subscribers in India. And whereas somebody making bullshit content is able to have, crores of followers. So this reflects, number one, the attempt of America to control our mind, and also reflects our attempts and our mindset of what we want to consume. So don't blame technology by saying ki, Meta controls us. In fact, we are the ones consuming that stupidity. If we start altering our decisions today, that okay, we will reject watching this content, you will see a lot of change happen in the society.
Hmm. But we'll still be controlled by those specific algorithms, right?
See, again, as I said, the question is if it is an algorithmic war which is happening, you decide the algorithm you wish to follow. If you happen to follow spirituality, and let's say if you happen to follow something that makes sense, for example, there is somebody, and I'm sure you must have heard, called Napoleon Hill. You go to YouTube, there are umpteen number of videos of Napoleon Hill. But the question is, how many of us view that? The first thing in the morning when you wake up is that first thing you should see is a Napoleon Hill video. It will give you the path and the clarity for the day. But how many people do that? Nobody. Today we wake up in the morning, we sit in the washroom with our mobile and we start watching all that bullshit nonsense on the Instagram and YouTube. And then we expect ki, okay, our country is not growing. Boss, your psyche is also the same. What did you do? So, this has to be a very concerted attempt that we mold the algorithm in our way. But the question is, are we willing to do that? Now, you can't expect the government to do this. This is individually dependent upon you. So while at one place you may say, I want to control my content watching, the other is what do you want to watch also determines a lot. So that's where the game lies.
And talking about the security reliance on America again, their reliability has gone drastically down over the years. What if, hypothetically, in 2027, China attempts to capture Taiwan? Do you think America will come saving Taiwan?
See, firstly, visualizing that China could attack Taiwan is also problematic in the sense that if you look at the Chinese military per se, they have done a lot of hypothetical exercises, but most of them are junk. Because their military exercises are more about boosting their efforts to showcase that they have the control over the Taiwan Strait, but they don't have that. On the other hand, with respect to Taiwan, if we say that America is today interested to come and save Taiwan, it's a very hypothetical scenario for the simple reason. America has already had some very bad experiences on, supporting countries which are thousands of kilometers away from their homeland. They've had a terrible experience in Afghanistan. They've had a terrible experience in Vietnam. They've had a terrible experience even during the World War II per se. The fact that America has never won a war, has always initiated, suppressed it, controlled it their way, and then left it without achieving anything out of it, proves very clearly that if the Taiwan problem emerges, I seriously don't see with the past American experience that they could dominate the situation. While I don't see China dominating the same situation, that's why you see Taiwan flare up is not happening for a long time.
Right.
Because otherwise Taiwan would have happened long back. Right? China has been saying about the unification for almost like 50 years now. But somehow they know the limits to their capability. America has experienced limits to their own capability. So that's why probably you'll have to wait and watch. It won't happen in 27 maybe, but maybe sometime closer to 37 or 40.
Right.
Because by that time, China would be inching very closer to their 100-year marathon. So that time we expect this.
Okay.
Definitely.
And if that happens, how will the world look like then? How will the world change?
We don't know, because we don't know what will be the situation of the world at that time. Because see, we don't know whether Russia at that time will have the same comfort level with China, whether India and China will be same good friends or no. It all depends upon how the situation is at that time. Very difficult to say today. But with respect to China, US, right now there doesn't seem a possibility.
Okay. And about like the major conflicts. So there's one Israel and Hamas, Iran, Gaza, that situation is going on. Russia and Ukraine is going on. Now, what will be the next major conflict or the major war that we'll see? Because as we talked about Israel and Gaza issue on the Hindi episode as well, even you have that similar understanding that Israel is hell bent on clearing Gaza of Hamas and Palestine of Hamas. So that issue, if Hamas is gone, that issue is done and dusted. Russia and Ukraine, you told me that it will continue in some form, but the military industrial complex, it's like tectonic plates. So it moves from one place to another and from there to somewhere else. So if Israel and Gaza, Hamas, Iran, whatever that is, if that is done and dusted, what will be the next major conflict?
It will keep rotating like this only. So expecting that Hamas will be cleared altogether in one single sweep operation by Israel, it's not possible. So that will take a prolonged period of time. If Hamas in the process is eliminated, there could be a probability that the Hezbollah regroups itself. If that happens, we do not know that then Lebanon will become the next threat again, as it has always been earlier. If that problem gets sorted out, probably Russia will again invade Ukraine and now start occupying, apart from the eastern, the other territories of Ukraine. So this military industrial complex will always ensure that there is some testing ground available in the world. And then sometimes there can be very unexpected testing grounds that may emerge outrightly, which you cannot predict because the spark may just come suddenly and it may ignite.
Correct.
And one such example has been the Arab Spring. Nobody knew. It just started and then never ended.
Correct. And do you think America would push Pakistan towards skirmishes with India?
They have always done that, for that matter. So whether they will push it again or not is not a hypothetical scenario to do. But if India, China become more proximate to each other, yes, they will do that. They will try to disturb the balance. See, at the end of the day, let's be very clear. America has always been very clear on this agenda that I don't want a united India. I don't want an India focusing too much on its own goals. I don't want India to grow. So, as far as India's growth is concerned, I will play with tariffs. As far as India's unity is concerned, I'll do my regime change type operations and keep experimenting them throughout India whenever the need be, by creating domestic political chaos in the country. Fake narratives all the time. So they're pioneers in this. They keep doing it.
And what happens with Pakistan then? Because Pakistan was once in China's court, now it is in America's court.
Pakistan does not have an identity of its own. They don't know what do they stand for. There has been a debate for last 75 years in Pakistan that are we a nation of South Asia or West Asia? In Pakistan per se, if you ask a Pakistani fellow, are you a Pakistani first or a Muslim first, they cannot give you an answer. They'll get troubled there. Okay, no, I am a Muslim, but then I am a Pakistani. No, I am a Pakistani, but I am a Muslim. They don't have clarity. So Pakistan as a nation doesn't have its identity of its own. And a nation without identity means it can fall into anybody's lap. So whether it is China earlier, America again now, somebody else in the future, we don't know. Anybody can come. Pakistan is a use and throw option. It's available for all. It's available for all. So you can just use it whenever you want it. That's the idea, the way the world looks at Pakistan today.
And do you think Pakistan is a bigger threat for India, at least in next 5 years, and not China, considering the limited warfare abilities?
No, China will always be a bigger threat. Let's accept it. Pakistan will always be a helping hand.
Even in the near future?
Throughout the future. China will always remain a threat. Because of the very simple reason that China will never be comfortable again to see India growing in Asia today. Because in Asia today, China wants to have that sole superpower status. So any challenge, either by Japan or by India, is something that they will resist.
Yeah.
They know they cannot worry much about Japan because Japan is on a demographic disaster today. Their population is declining. So the only country to worry about is India today. Now in India, even if you have demographic dividend, you don't have to militarily fight with India. You destroy that demographic dividend. That's what the Chinese are doing. For that matter, earlier we had the TikTok thing. The moment the TikTok was banned, everything came on Instagram. So Chinese are playing that game very clearly. Make their youth addict to all this nuisance which is there.
Right.
That's what we just discussed.
In fact, I think even S. Jaishankar mentioned that to Wang Yi, if I'm not mistaken, that India wants a multipolar world, but India also wants a multipolar Asia. Yes. Which is a very interesting statement.
No, it has always been the same policy of India for long. So we want a multipolar world, including a multipolar regional scenario everywhere in the world. So we don't want anyone to dominate in Africa also. We don't want anyone to dominate in Southeast Asia also. That has been a part of our policy.
So moving ahead, what do you think is the blueprint that India should follow, at least in the bureaucratic channels or the geopolitical channels?
See, India has to understand one thing, that there is no substitute to Atmanirbharta. You have to work hard for it. You have to secondly remember that there are no two friends in the international politics. Nobody will truly want your growth per se. So everybody is here for self-interest. So therefore, be self-interest centric and advance your national interest. So this is how we have to be very clear about what we do in our future.
Hmm. And are you optimistic about India's future?
See, there is no harm in being optimistic about India's future per se, because at least we know where we are headed to. But saying that we should be optimistic about the youth of our country is like a problem today, because that's where the biggest, unfortunate cancer of our country lies, if I put it that way in a very harsh sense.
Yeah.
Because they don't seem to support the growth ambition of our country in any scenario. So that's where, the lot of intervention has to be made.
And specifically about China, because we have seen that there's a recalibration of some sorts in our relationship, at least since the time Trump has given us those tariffs. May it be for the optics, or are we serious? I don't know about that. But if there's that recalibration, do you think TikTok will be back?
See, I don't really know that TikTok will be back or not, considering that we already have Instagram as a substitute to that. Saying that TikTok will be back is like a thing that is going to be dependent upon deep trust relationship with China, which I don't think is going to happen in the near future. It's very unlikely. But yes, if China shows some positivity and accepts the fact that, okay, we'll not be troublesome for you, we'll not support Pakistan in the future for the time being. Again, these are very hypothetical statements to make. In that case, probably we might do that. But the question is, why do you anyway need TikTok here?
Yeah.
The problem is that it's not going to lead to any intellectual growth in India, no?
True.
As it is, Instagram is dumbing down the humanity today in our country. YouTube shorts are doing the same for our country.
True.
So why do we want another thing to dumb out India further,
Yeah.
So that's where the problem is.
Okay. So one final question for this podcast. Everyone who is watching this podcast right now, what should be like top 3 things in their list of, or their agenda to take India forward?
The first and most important thing is to have a sense of ownership that this country belongs to you. So first, have that feeling that, it's my country and it's my responsibility to take this country further. Second thing is, do some contribution. Contribution doesn't mean you have to financially contribute. Contribution doesn't mean you have to join a government service. Contribution means that accepting that in whatever field you are, you do your job honestly and with utmost sincerity. And third is, have some faith on your country. Things are slow here. They take time, but they will work for the benefit, provided you have the patience to see that thing to happen. So let's see if these 3 things materialize.
Do you think this is India's biggest test right now?
It is the biggest test, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, we are miserably failing. Miserably failing. Because instead of our youth today, when this commerce minister of ours made a statement 3 months ago that most of our startups in India have created these delivery boys and girls, it created a huge issue in the entire so-called startup industry. But what he said was not wrong.
Yeah.
You are actually doing nothing. You are not contributing. Compare it with the Chinese startups. Now you may again say, okay, the government is to be blamed. Government is not creating conducive atmosphere. But the question is, did you try? Today
You're not innovating.
You're not innovating anything. And on top of that, you see here, today during the Operation Sindoor, there was so much of indigenous content that we used. There were so many drones, there were so many loitering munitions that we used, which were all domestically manufactured. There are also startups doing that, no? So if there are startups doing that, what prevents you to do similar things? So today there is more competition ki, who will deliver the sabji in your house. I mean, come out of it, yeah. The country needs better things in life. Not only you are making the country dumber by doing this, you are making them unhealthier. Earlier, you and me were thrown out by our mothers ki go down and get some milk or get some bread. Now everything is on the convenient of the phone. So it's compromising our health also. Now we don't want to go down today.
Yeah.
So the problem is ki, we don't have that culture of thinking about the country. Again, the biggest problem of our country is that everyone wants to focus only on themselves. What is my benefit? What is my profit? We don't think about the country at large. But we want the country to think about us throughout the time. That's the biggest problem. And then once we get frustrated, then okay, I will go to Dubai or I will go to, US and I'll become a servant there. Go. Fine. We don't have any problem. If that's what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's it.
Perfect. Pavneet ji, it's always a reality check when I talk to you.
Thank you.
I have mentioned this on the Hindi podcast as well,
Right.
that speaking with you is like getting to know the mirror. And it's the best reality check. But thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much once again.
Wow.
Thank you.